We really just want Mom back, okay? Right now, we believe Nancy is still out there. We want her home. Blood on the porch, that was one we did. It came back to Nancy. At this time, we have not identified a suspect or a person of interest in this case. We are working our best to do that. But to be clear, we have nobody of interest or any suspects that you would consider a prime suspect. We're just not there. We're not there yet. At 9:48 p.m., which is very consistent to what we were told by the family, that Nancy was dropped off at home, and we know that because we have a garage door open at approximately, I can't stress that enough, at approximately 9:48 p.m. At 9:50 p.m., that garage door closes. Sunday morning, early morning at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnects.
8 days. That's how long investigators told the public there was nothing. No footage, no visual evidence. No record of what happened on that porch in the Arizona desert in the early hours of February 1st, 2026. Then the FBI released 4 images, and everything shifted. Stay with me, because what those images contain, and what they still don't answer, is the part of this story that should keep all of us up at night. Before we go any further, if you're someone who follows missing persons cases closely, hit subscribe right now. We cover these stories with the detail they deserve. And drop a comment below. Do you think this abduction was planned weeks in advance? Because the evidence is starting to point in a very specific direction. Let's start not at the beginning, but at the moment the clock stopped. 2:28 in the morning, February 1st, 2026. A pacemaker, the device keeping an 84-year-old woman's heart regulated, stops syncing with her Apple devices. It doesn't glitch, it doesn't lag, it simply goes silent. And in cases like this, silence isn't peace. Silence is a timestamp. That's the moment investigators believe marks a critical threshold in what happened to Nancy Guthrie. Now let me give you the full picture, because who Nancy Guthrie is matters enormously to understanding why this case has gripped the entire country. She was not a stranger to the world. She was the mother of Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, one of the most recognizable faces in American morning television. But Nancy herself was no footnote in anyone else's story. Born in 1942 in Fort Wright, Kentucky, she built a life defined by resilience. She followed her late husband, mining engineer Charles Guthrie, across the world, including to Melbourne, Australia, where their daughter Savannah was born in 1971, when Charles died suddenly during a work trip to Mexico in 1988. Nancy raised 3 children largely on her own, spending nearly 2 decades working at the University of Arizona. By the time she was 84, she had lived in the same desert home in the Catalina foothills north of Tucson for over 50 years. 50 years. The same walls, the same desert light, the same address. And on the night of January 31st, that home became the center of a federal investigation. Here's how the evening unfolded, because the mundanity of it is part of what makes this so disturbing. Nancy had dinner with her daughter Annie. She played cards with family, normal, warm, ordinary. A family evening that probably looked like hundreds of others before it. At 9:48 p.m., she was dropped back at her home. The garage door opened. 2 minutes later, it closed. And from that point forward, no one has seen Nancy Guthrie. Not a neighbor, not a camera, not a single confirmed sighting. Now here's where the night turns. At 1:47 in the morning, nearly 4 hours after she arrived home, her doorbell camera disconnects. Investigators were clear. this was not a power cut. This was not a software issue. The device was physically pulled from the wall, removed by someone who was standing on her porch in the middle of the night. Think about that for a moment. Whoever did this knew exactly where that camera was. They knew it needed to come down before they could move. That level of awareness does not come from impulse. It comes from preparation. Roughly 30 minutes after the camera goes dark, motion is detected on the property. But the lens that would have captured it no longer exists. And then, at 2:28 a.m., that pacemaker timestamp, the signal dies. The following morning, when a family member arrived to check on Nancy, what they found painted a deeply alarming picture. Her car was in the garage. Her wallet was inside the house. Her medication her family says she depended on for survival, was sitting untouched on the counter. And on the front porch, there was blood. DNA confirmed to be Nancy's. This was not a woman who wandered off. Sheriff Chris Nanos stated it plainly. Nancy Guthrie did not have dementia, and due to limited mobility, could barely walk 50 yards without assistance. She was not a flight risk. She was taken. So let me ask you this, and I want your genuine thoughts in the comments. At what point in this timeline do you think the planning for this began? Because the FBI's own evidence requests are going to reframe everything you just heard. For 8 days after Nancy vanished, investigators said the surveillance footage was unrecoverable. The camera had been torn down. The recordings were assumed lost. But federal agents, working alongside private sector digital forensic specialists, spent those 8 days excavating the corrupted remains of her Google Nest system. What they pulled out were fragments, not a full recording, not clean, continuous video. 4 black and white still images, grainy, partial, but undeniable. A figure on the porch, masked, gloved, backpack on both shoulders, and at the waist, what appeared to be a holstered firearm. Let that image settle for a second. This person arrived at an 84-year-old woman's home in the middle of the night, wearing a ski mask, carrying a weapon, and came prepared with a bag large enough to matter. The recovered frames show them reaching toward the lens, then attempting to block it with their body, then physically pulling a plant to obscure the view, before the feed cuts entirely. This was not someone who stumbled into a crime of opportunity. This was someone running a plan. Investigators described the figure as male, approximately 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches, average build. And through the mask, a ski mask with openings for the eyes and mouth, what appeared to be a black mustache was visible. One more detail. Beneath the glove material, there appeared to be a ring. Law enforcement confirmed forensic teams were analyzing that detail specifically, examining every pixel for anything that could lead to an identity. The backpack was identified as a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, sold exclusively at Walmart. Investigators immediately began working with Walmart to trace purchase data. Gun shops across Arizona were canvassed to identify the holster's distinctive design and positioning. Every thread was being pulled, but none of them had yet led to a name. Then the search of the surrounding area produced something that felt, for a moment, like a real break. Approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home, a pair of gloves was found on the side of the road. In total, around 16 pairs of gloves were collected during area searches, many discarded by the volunteer search teams themselves. But one pair stood apart. Forensic analysts working at a private lab in Florida identified male DNA on that pair. An unknown male, not Nancy, not anyone in her family. A profile submitted to the FBI's CODIS database, a system containing over 19 million offender profiles, and it matched no one. Whoever left that DNA had never entered the federal system for a qualifying offense, which means either this person has no prior criminal record or they have never been caught. Investigators announced they would pursue genealogical DNA analysis, the same technique that cracked the Golden State Killer case, which works by identifying relatives and building family trees from partial DNA profiles. It is painstaking. It can take months. And in a case where an 84-year-old woman is missing, dependent on a pacemaker and daily medication, a month is a timeline that terrifies everyone watching. Meanwhile, ransom communications began to surface. On February 2nd, just one day after Nancy vanished, a Tucson television station received an email claiming to be from her abductor. The message reportedly included specific details about her home and what she was wearing the night she disappeared. Details that would require either direct involvement or access to information not yet public. Subsequent messages demanded millions of dollars in Bitcoin, included a cryptocurrency wallet address, and set deadlines. One message claimed Nancy was alive, but frightened. But then the investigation took a turn that complicated everything. On February 5th, a 42-year-old man from Hawthorne, California, Derek Fella, was arrested on federal charges. Prosecutors alleged he had been posing as Nancy's abductor, sending fraudulent ransom demands to extract money from the chaos surrounding her disappearance. Authorities stated clearly he had no involvement in her actual disappearance. So the question that now hangs over the entire ransom thread is this: if some of those messages were fabricated by an opportunist, were any of them real? Was there ever a genuine communication from whoever took her? Investigators have not publicly resolved that question, and that uncertainty is significant. On February 17th, Sheriff Nanos publicly cleared members of the Guthrie family as suspects. Their phones, their computers, their vehicles, all processed. The family, he stated, were victims. But here's the detail that tells you investigators believe this crime began long before January 31st. When law enforcement released requests for surveillance footage from the surrounding neighborhood, they didn't just ask for footage from the night Nancy disappeared. They asked for footage from January 11th, 20 days earlier, between 9 p.m. and midnight, and footage from January 31st between 9:30 in the morning and 11 a.m., hours before Nancy even arrived home that evening. That is not a routine footage request. That is investigators telling us, without saying it directly, that they believe this property was watched, that someone came back multiple times, that they studied her routines, her schedule, the layout of her home, and then returned with a mask, a weapon, a backpack, and a plan. The reward for information has reached $100,000. Between 40 and 50,000 leads have been filed. Multi-agency ground teams continue searching the desert terrain around her home. And the manufacturer of her pacemaker is working with authorities to determine whether the device itself might be located. Because even a powered-down pacemaker carries a signal history. As of now, 3 weeks after Nancy Guthrie was last seen, the masked figure in those 4 recovered images has not been identified. The genealogical DNA analysis is ongoing. The surveillance system is still being forensically examined, and her medication is still on the counter. Her car is still in the garage. Outside her home, yellow roses have been left by people who have never met her, but cannot stop thinking about her. The FBI's release of those images was a message to the public and to whoever was on that porch. We have you on camera. We know your build, on your mask, your gloves, your bag, the ring on your finger. We have your DNA. We are building your family tree. The only question left unanswered, the only one that matters, is where Nancy Guthrie is right now. If you know anything, the tip line is active, the reward is real, and the case is not cold. Tell me in the comments. Do you think this was connected to Savannah Guthrie's public profile? Or do you think the motive runs deeper than that? And if you're watching this from Arizona, or if you've followed this case from day one, I want to hear from you specifically. Because sometimes the most important detail is the one hiding in plain sight. And someone watching this video might be the one who sees it. Subscribe if you're not already. Cases like this deserve continued coverage, and we're not done with this story. Nancy Guthrie is still missing, and we are still looking.